Welcome. Welcome to my space. This video adventure is a way for me to complete a few goals. One, I am adamant about bringing shame out into the light. Shame likes darkness. It likes to hide people. And it hid me for at least 10 years. Before it slowly started to erode, though it still exists. I still have to combat it, and I have to bring it out into the world, even though it's telling me to stay home and to stay small. So, this is a way for me to do that, even though it gives me a little bit of anxiety because my shame is telling me right now to quit. The other thing is that this provides me a space for sharing my research, my thinking. Um, I have written about shame. I have two poetry books that talk about my story. I have another nonfiction book that I'm going to be starting that has nothing to do, well, I don't know. Everything always has to do with shame and forgiveness in my life, I think. But I want to document and find new ways because I believe that shame needs to be shared, which might not be rightly the exact word. But I want my shame and your shame to like see each other and to say, hey, why don't we take a back seat and let this beautiful person come out a little bit more? Let's step into the light a little bit more. So the more I can do that, um, well, I know that I'm going to feel better. So I'm hoping you will feel better. So on this channel, I'm going to be talking about the favorite topic of shame. And what I've found is that self-worth is very intertwined with shame. So I'm going to talk about that. And then I'm also going to talk about forgiveness. My story, my path has a lot of forgiveness within it. And the more that I look at forgiveness, the more I realize I think leading with forgiveness, and we probably need a little bit more of that in our world today. So I'm going to be looking, excuse me, at these topics through different ways. Sometimes I might read a poem and talk about it. Sometimes a book passage, or just maybe sharing a moment. If I can do that, like a high anxiety moment when my shame is really rearing. So I'm not sure exactly, but those are my thoughts. So now I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this, and I'm going to tell you that through a story. So in 2010, I graduated from Vermont College of Fine Arts. It's a low residency. It was a low residency creative writing program. They have since morphed into a whole other kind of low residency programs, but I was in the writing program and I studied poetry. I graduated in January of 2010. And some friends and I decided to do an online workshop critique group to kind of keep us accountable, keep our creative work going. And so there was, maybe six of us, something like that. And we all lived all over the country, one in Italy. So it was all through email. About that fall, so September, maybe 6 months later, I couldn't write a poem. Like I couldn't do it. I would sit down and sentences came to my mind. Now, I don't know how other writers write or other people think, but I can tell you that when I sit down to write, I don't think in sentences. I don't see characters. I don't think in scenes. I'm not a fiction writer that way. I think in phrases and I see images and I think in layers. So I'm like making connections between short ideas, I guess. And so for me, that's what I think of as my poet brain. So here I am, 6 months after graduate school, having gotten, paid a bunch of money, and I'm thinking in sentences. And I was extremely frustrated. So after a month or so of sitting down and only thinking in sentences and not writing one word down, because I just was railing against the fact that I had to write a sentence, I finally gave in. And I wrote 20 pages. And then I sat there completely bewildered. So what came out was a story a very personal story. It's what's my shame story. And I knew that that's what I was trying to write anyway, through my poetry. So it didn't surprise me because it was just like top of mind, first words. Let's say what, first words, best order. Um, so I'm in my group and I didn't submit that first chapter. I don't think I submitted any of it for at all. And then, a couple 6 months go by later, we have a new person in our workshop group, and it's a woman who graduated the semester after us. And I knew her. I didn't know her well. I didn't know the story she was writing about. I knew she was a memoirist, and I knew it had something to do with her father, but I didn't know much else than that. And pretty quickly, we decided after she joined that we would do an in-person retreat. So for the in-person retreat, we all submitted our work to each other. People who aren't writers, basically a workshop works where you take your writing, whatever the designated amount is, whether it's 10 pages or 1,000 words or 2 poems, whatever, and then you submit it to other people. They read it and spend time thinking about it, and then they give you writing their feedback. So that's what we were doing, and we were gonna do an in-person workshop. So we submitted our work before we left, and then a week later or whatever, we were gonna all be together. So I get everybody's work, and I'm sitting there reading this new member's work, and I'm floored. And I'm floored because I know that she's reading my work at the same exact time. Maybe not obviously the same exact time, but you know what I mean, in that week. And what I submitted to her was the first chapter that I wrote that day. And the first chapter that I wrote that day detailed the night of a car crash when I was 20 years old, where I was driving. And so the chapter opens up with me at home, actually laying in bed and getting a phone call. Now, this is in 1994, so we don't have cell phones. So I go get the phone, and it's a friend of mine who had just gotten off work. And he's like, we're going to go out tonight. Let's go out. And I'm like, I don't want to go out. I was kind of a homebody. I was 20, not that I didn't mind, but, and he was like, let's go dancing. You never go out. We never go out. So I was like, okay, let's go out. So we go dancing. This is Thursday night. And I'm 20 and he's at least 26 or 27. And so we go to the first place and he gets us some beer and we start drinking. And we don't dancing there yet because it was a little early. So we're just hanging out and talking, and then we move on to the second bar where we do a bunch of our dancing. We spend hours and hours there dancing and drinking. And then we go to a third bar, which is closing, and we have another beer or two and sit. It's almost empty, and just sit there and talk. And then we leave. And on the way to his car, he throws me his keys. And I throw them back to him. And then he throws them back to me. And then I throw them back to him. And we do this a few times. And he's just saying, you drive. Come on, you want to drive. And I'm saying, no, I can't drive your car. And I didn't say that because I knew I had drank too much. Both of us, neither of us should have been driving or thinking about driving. It was a game because he had a 300Z and was a fun car to drive. And I was like, no, your car is too nice or too fast. And, we just played. But we threw the car keys back and forth. When we got to his car, I was in the driver's side and he threw him one last time and then he got in the passenger seat. And I started driving us home. Now, where we lived was pretty flat. It's a coastal beach town in North Carolina. There's not really many hills at all. But we went around one curve to the left and I lost control of the car. And and it slid across the intersection and hit a pole. And it hit a pole where he was sitting. And unfortunately, he hadn't put his seatbelt on. I didn't black out for long. When I woke up, he was slumped over in the console. And I bent down to see if he was alive, to see if I could hear his breathing. And I could. It was a very curdled breath. So he was taken to the hospital that night and spent 4 months in a coma and suffered traumatic brain injuries. And I was taken to jail. And so this is the scene that my friend in this workshop is reading. And the last thing in that chapter was me standing on the side of the road. Well, I guess it is me getting in the car, but me standing there and saying, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. As I'm sitting there reading my friend's work, I'm reading a chapter in her, well, it's now a book. She has published the book. A chapter where she is trying to find the drunk driver that caused her father's death when she was 6 years old. So this driver entered a freeway, a busy freeway, the wrong way. And so she was driving against traffic. And my friend, who had suffered memory issues because of that, spent years in therapy, and also spent time thinking about this woman and why did she do it? Why did she get up? I don't remember what time of day it was. It wasn't early morning. I think it was afternoon. But why was she drunk at that time of the day? Why did she drive on the wrong side of the freeway? Why was her father right there at that exact time that he couldn't swerve because of the traffic? And so this one chapter is her specifically trying to figure out, but also wanting to ask this woman, why did you do it? So here I am reading that. I'm reading why, her questions of why, needing to know. And she's reading mine, which says, I didn't mean to. We don't talk at all on the phone or anything like that. We arrive. I fly in. She had driven. We all get to the house. I mean, her and I think it was one other person. That's kind of fuzzy. I think one other person was in the room to begin with, maybe two. And everybody's read all this work. So everyone is feeling the same, like the elephant is there in the room. And we just drop our things in the kitchen and look at each other. And it's just, we had to address it immediately. And I was so deeply frightened because, there's a big part of me that feels like I should take on everyone's pain who, like her, was affected by somebody who drove while they were impaired. And so I was ready for her to be angry at me or to just whatever, any negative emotion towards me because I represent something that was very painful to them in their life. So that's been a big fear of mine. And we hug, like, and sob and cry. I mean, sob and cry, same thing, but kind of not. We sob and we sob, and she tells me that she read it a dozen times. She read it out loud. She read it to her husband. And in the process of doing that, it helped her heal and let go, and even in a way forgive that woman. I can't say she used that word, but she didn't need to keep asking why anymore. Because even though she knew intellectually in some way that the woman didn't mean to kill her father, our brains need answers. Like, we need to answer why. We need to answer, especially with tragedy, with something you just can't even wrap your brain around. We need answers. And my answer, her seeing this through my perspective, helped her know and move through being stuck. So, in that moment that we decided and realized we are inextricably tied together for the rest of our lives, we healed each other. And I don't know, I can't speak for her, obviously, more than what I've already shared about what forgiveness meant for her in that moment, with whether it was, she didn't need to forgive me, but she was maybe forgiving the woman, or just forgiving life itself is really what it comes down to sometimes. You just forgiving the chaos that can happen. For me, even though I was able to forgive myself a little bit more. Not Forgiveness is so strange and difficult, but there was a part of me, because I was able to share myself in a way that helped her. And I know this is it. That helping her helped me. And that helped me forgive myself a little bit. It also paved the way to exactly where I am now. I mean, that was in 2010. So talk about taking a long time to figure out how to do things, or what to do with our lessons. So that's my story. That's why I'm here. She did promise me, or she did not promise me, she did make me promise that I would continue telling my story, that I would continue helping people like her, putting myself out there, because I know that there's not a lot of perspectives or stories out there from my perspective. It's not an easy thing. And I'm not saying it's not easy. I'm here because I'm a writer and I'm a communicator, and I promised myself when I was 23 years old that I would help people with my story. Anyway, she made me promise. So here I am. And her hug and her acceptance, yeah, it gave me a place to put forgiveness through and onto myself, even though she wasn't forgiving me. She had nothing to forgive me from. It's like she was a conduit, because we can't always get forgiveness from where we want it from, or we can't always forgive those who we maybe want to forgive. Maybe they've passed on. Maybe you're just never going to see them again. So that's me. That's why I'm here. It's not going to be polished or pretty or whatever. It's just going to be what it is, because I don't have any other way to do it. So thank you very much.